Welcome to the Thrive Co podcast, exploring the inner side of success. I am your host, Nikki, and each week we will explore the mindset shifts, personal growth, and everyday tools that will help you to navigate ambition, manage stress, and build a life that actually feels good on the inside. Through solo episodes and honest guest conversations, we look at what it really takes to grow, change, and thrive in the modern world. Hello and welcome back to the Thrive Co podcast. I hope you're all doing really good. How are we, guys? Hope you have had a fantastic week. I've had a great week, actually. We went to Rome last weekend, which if you follow my personal account on social media, you will see the Reels highlights. Oh my gosh, it was the perfect city break, to be honest. I tend to find when we go to city breaks, we either absolutely fall in love with and love the city, or it's not for us. And when I say not for us, for instance, we went to Paris for my 40th, and whilst Paris, I'm sure, is amazing, I think we went at the wrong time of year. We went midweek. I'm sure if you listen back to the episode, you can hear some of the kind of debrief and review of that. So I'm not saying anything against Paris, but that experience just wasn't as good for us as what some of the others have been. I mean, the fact that it was like 23, 24 degrees in Rome last weekend was wonderful. And also it was just such a vibey city. The Italians are amazing. We went to some cool rooftop bars. We went to some amazing restaurants. We ate all the pasta and pizza. We went to all the tourist attractions. So yeah, if you do ever get a chance to go, if you've not been, then I would go. Also, I went when I was like 16 and it's changed a lot since then. So if you've not been recently, then this is your, reminder, permission slip, whatever it is that you need to book the trip. So I'm going to crack on today because I've got a slot to record, but I'm actually waiting on a delivery. It's a delivery that I need to answer the door for. And that would be fine because I can just pause and re-record. However, I've got the dog here and he will go bananas. So the chances are that, I'm not going to be able to edit all that out. So what I would say is I've got about 25, 30 minutes now and I'm going to crack on and whiz through because I'm feeling inspired. I've just done a coaching call and this was one of the topics that we were talking about in the group. And it's always the case with these episodes. I'll have an idea and then something else in the week will also be around that topic or idea, or it will come up again or have a conversation. And that's what's happened with this. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is the idea or the theme of self-acceptance, basically, of knowing who you are, of not judging who you are, and of working with like your personality traits and you as a person. So this actually came about earlier on in today. I'm recording this on Thursday. So on Thursday, I had my coaching group call at 10 a.m. and I'd taken Marley for a walk. Before that, have quite a busy morning on a Thursday. I go to Reformer Pilates at 7:30, come back, take Marley out. So we were on our normal walk. And we walked past a guy who was washing his car and his dog was just out. It was a spaniel and he was just like out milling around on the drive. Now, if you've listened to this podcast for a while or you follow me on social media, you will know that we've had some challenges with Marley. He's an absolutely amazing dog. He's got the best personality. He's the most affectionate animal I've ever met in my life and fits our family so well. But he's definitely not the sort of dog that we can let off lead at the minute around traffic, animals. And actually, case in point, last night, so Wednesday night, we'd taken him to a dog field in the morning for a little play date with one of his friends. I say I had and the other dog's owner. So we burnt off loads of energy. And then in the evening, I said to my husband, why don't we take him on a walk over the nature reserve and just let him off lead? He doesn't have to go wild and run. We'll just tell him to heel by us, but just to give him a bit of freedom, but teach him to kind of walk with us. Because it is really difficult with, dogs like that haven't had that freedom. They don't get to burn as much energy. And also I feel like sometimes our own anxieties play a massive part in not letting him go off lead. And, is it now becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy sort of thing? So the first part of the walk was on the river and he was absolutely fine. It's not on the river, it's like up the riverbank. So he was great, came back to us, kept checking in. We kept blowing the whistle and calling him back. And then we got over the canal where we had to have him on lead. And then we took him off on the nature reserve. And at first he was fine. He was checking in. And then he saw a bird. And that was it. He was off. And when I say off, he was a speck in the distance. There was no stopping him. And the thing is, it's not even that we are bothered about him being by us. We know that he's not going to go too far in terms of he's a very Velcro dog. So it's not that he's trying to run away, but there's a wire fence in the nature reserve. There's bushes that lead to drops. There's just things that he could get into that if he's not in our sight of vision, we don't know. He's got a tracker on, but like my husband said, we could track him and he could be at the bottom of the canal or stuck in some barbed wire. So yeah, it just kind of reminded us that actually there's certain areas that we do need to keep the long line on him, and certain areas where, because he's a hunting dog, his prey drive is so high that he's just not safe to be off lead. So that happened last night. So then the comments, I was having a conversation with this guy that was washing his car. And I said, oh my gosh, your dog is so tame and so chill. If I let my dog off, he'd be halfway to York by now. And he just laughed and said, oh no, he's never on lead. This one, never on lead. He's really calm, really trustworthy. And I made a comment and went, oh, I'm really jealous. And then I was like, come on, boy. And we walked off. And as I was walking, I was thinking, do you know what? That's actually really not helping our cause, because he is probably never going to be a dog that we can just let off lead on our drive to just mill around, because the second he sees another dog or a bird or a squirrel, he'll be off. It's his inbuilt instincts. It's not that he is doing it intentionally. He's not being naughty. He's not, the only way that you could stop him from doing something like that is to put an e-collar on him or something, which I know some farm dogs do have, but they're likely to be banned in the UK soon anyway. So it's probably an option, and I don't want to have to do that to him. I'd rather him just be safe. So, and it really made me think, this is something that we are having to accept, and that actually it's just going to be so much more beneficial for us to work with the dog that we've got. Will he ever be the dog that can just mill around on the drive? Probably not. In fact, very, very likely not. But on the plus side, he is every single person that meets him, every single boarder and sitter he's been to, every time he goes to the vet, everybody loves him because he's such a character and he's so friendly and so playful and so loving, and he jumps up and puts his arms around people, and he genuinely is just a ball of joy. And would his character be different if he was that chill that, we could just let him off like that? Who knows? And actually, it's like children. I've got friends and family members who have kids that are like polar opposites. And sometimes they'll say things like, oh, if only he or she was more like their brother or sister, or we thought that having the second one, they wouldn't be like that, or, comments about the personality where actually it's they're never going to be like that person. They're never going to be as academic or as calm as their sibling. But actually the beauty of them being an individual is they have other characteristics that I'm sure you wish the other child possessed at other points in their life or in certain situations. I've got one family member who's got two children, and one's very, very energetic and, chatty and high energy. But with that comes a real, what's the word? a confidence that the other child doesn't have. And sometimes I think that despite them being a bit of a handful, they actually, you know, that confidence really does help them through life in situations where the other child struggles. So it's really funny, isn't it, how we can recognize the real good and the real positives in other people, in our pets, in our children. And yet sometimes in ourselves, we're striving for perfection and striving to be something that we're not. Like, we are innately built with certain personality traits and characteristics. Now, that isn't to say that we can't improve. There'd be no point in me having a self-development podcast on improving ourselves and, you know, developing ourselves if we couldn't make those changes. But I think there's a distinct difference between improving things that we can improve and change and making tweaks and trying to mold ourselves into a completely different personality type. For those of you that are regular listeners to the show, or maybe you know me personally, you won't have been able to get away without hearing me talk about Simprove. Simprove is a scientifically backed, water-based probiotic drink. You drink it daily and it has been scientifically proven to help with things like bloating, IBS symptoms, pain. It was actually a dietitian friend of mine that introduced it to me last year, and I honestly wouldn't be without it now. It's helped with my energy, with my bloating, it's helped with my immune system, and also things like my skin. The list is honestly endless. Now, I have got a code for you. So if you'd like to try Simprove, you can get 50%, that's a massive 50% off your first 3-month subscription by going on to simprove.com and putting in the code Nikki50. That's NIKKI50, or clicking the link in the show notes. And so, for instance, I am a super type A person. I am organized. My email inbox is always completely, you know, read and actioned. I make to-do lists and notes on things. I am the person that organizes all the holidays and events and get-togethers. And I've always been that way. And a friend of mine made a comment a couple of years ago when we were going to another friend's birthday dinner, because he showed up at our house and he hadn't got a birthday card. He wanted to stop on the way. He was already running late, so we were therefore running late. And he was like, oh, can we just stop and get this card? And I was like, no, you should have been more organised. Like, as far as I'm concerned, that's on you. Like, I'm not making myself late for the dinner because you failed to organise yourself. And he made a comment that, oh, you should be more, and then named another friend of ours in the group who is like super laid back, super type B. And that comment really got to me, because I was like, am I uptight and too controlling? And, you know, all these things that he was basically implying that I was by saying you should be more blah, blah. And it probably played on my mind for a good like 6 to 9 months maybe. And I was basically nagging myself for being the type of person that I am. I was berating myself based on one comment, which is insane. But then a conversation that I had with somebody else was around how in my job, and especially now that I've pivoted into more project delivery, if I wasn't that type of person, things wouldn't get done. I wouldn't be any good at my job. And actually that in my marriage, for instance, my husband, who has definitely got undiagnosed, probably ADD. I don't think he's got the hyperactivity part, but ADD, and is definitely not the person that does the list and the organising. If we were both like that and both super, super laid back, it probably wouldn't work. We'd miss appointments and we'd not get the presents for the family birthdays, and the holidays would probably not have, you know, the right schedules, or we'd book the wrong hotel. So it plays to the strength of my marriage for me to be like that. But that one comment completely made me question my whole personality, and it really got to me, which now that I've done some work on that, it wouldn't do. So I think there's a difference between what we can improve on, and actually what we just have to identify are our personality traits or characteristics and work with them and accept them without judgment, without rejecting them, because that is then when they start to run the show. Like that comment that about my personality type being, super type A, I then tried to go the opposite direction, and it ended up being, it was a slog, because I was purposely trying to be something that at the heart and core of who I am not. And at the end of the day, lying to yourself is disconnecting from your own power and your own possibility and potential, because you're spending so much time trying to be one type of person or one way, or trying to correct, in inverted commas, this personality type, this trait, that actually you aren't able to use the traits that you have got and just be the incredible human that you were born to be. And also, how bloody boring would it be, or chaotic would it be, if we were all the same type of person, if we all had the same sorts of personality traits? So I think there's a difference between, for instance, being somebody who shows up late and disrespects other people's time and trying to change that by giving yourself extra time to get ready, or getting people to tell you that the event starts earlier, or booking a taxi in advance, or whatever it might be. Those are, I guess, sort of ways and systems and processes that you can put in place to counteract it, versus berating yourself for being that type of person. And there's a difference between trying to change that when it impacts people than there is trying to chill out more or trying to be more relaxed if you're just not that way inclined. And actually, rather than going the opposite way and trying to be more relaxed or be more chill, it's a way better use of your time to try and work with that personality type and that trait, and try and identify and really champion all of the good things that being that type of person brings to your life. In my case, the super organized and super on it. And also it makes me a more thoughtful person, because I'm able to put thought into things because I am organized in advance. And this definitely comes into play, I think, as you get older. So, like, for instance, I was thinking about when I was younger. I remember I went to dance school. She may even listen to this podcast, so if she does, shout out to Laura, and please do drop me a message if you do listen, because this would be really funny to reconnect on. But I used to go dancing with a girl called Laura, who was in the same year as me at school, but she was so cool, so pretty. And I remember being on a bus to a dance, it was like a day that we used to go to at this college in Leicester, where you would like learn new stuff and do different dance routines and try different styles. And we went to this day, and she was wearing black liquid eyeliner and listening to the Destiny's Child Writings on the Wall album on her disc player, her what do you call it, like, I can't remember what they were called now, but like a CD, like portable CD player. And I just thought she was the coolest person on the planet. And that week I went out and bought that album and bought that eyeliner. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still one of my most favourite albums to date. Don't wear the eyeliner anymore. But there's a difference between being inspired by somebody and trying to emulate who that person is. And I think as you're growing up and you're finding your style, you do tend to do a lot of that. The other thing I see a lot, and I definitely 100% relate to, is when you're in a relationship, you will literally be sometimes, as a younger individual, a chameleon and change to your partner's taste. Like, I had a partner that was super like emo, and I went down the route of being more emo. And then, I had one that used to hang around in the woods opposite our house. So I ended up trying to be a bit chavvy and do that. And that wasn't me. It was never who I was. But I was trying to change who I was to fit in with them, which is really normal as you're growing up. But then to the contrary, I remember in my 20s, I had a partner that was in a metal band. And by that point, I had not fully, because I don't think I fully really knew who I was until my 30s, actually, until I was divorced from my first husband. But I remember going to one of his gigs in a Barbie t-shirt, and I had blonde hair at the time, in pigtails, and I thought, fuck this, I'm not dressing up in like all the dark, dreary, gothic like clothes like the metal fans do. That's not who I am. So I'd started to find my own style and my own personality. But you definitely go through that as a younger person. But I think if you're trying to do it as an adult and you're trying to conform and you're trying to be somebody that you're not, it shows up as inauthentic. And there's something about when somebody is being inauthentic that is just a real ick. And it stops you from connecting with them properly. Like, I've met through this work and through my recruitment work some incredibly authentic people. The coaching group that I'm part of, the most amazingly authentic people. They will show up, they will show their emotions, they will share. And there's such a difference between that and some of the client meetings that I show up to where somebody's projecting a personality that they aren't because of the role that they're in at work. And there's just a complete disconnect. You don't get to know them as a person. You don't get to connect with them and to really understand them. And it becomes quite transactional. And you can probably see it on social media as well when somebody's trying to do something. And there's a difference between being out of your comfort zone and being inauthentic. And I think sometimes people can be out of their comfort zone, but you can still connect with them because they're trying to be as authentic as they can in that discomfort. There is a real difference, though, between being in somebody's presence who is trying to be something that they're not for a reason that only they know, whether it's to sell a product or sell a high ticket coaching service or to try and convince you of something. You just get that sense and you just get that feeling. And that's normally when they're not accepting of the individual that they are, or they're trying to do something that doesn't sit authentically with them. And one of the things that I've always promised myself, and especially going into this year and up leveling and showing up more online, is that if something doesn't feel right, like I will see other creators' videos and work and workshops, and if that isn't something that I get super passionate about or I don't feel 100% connected to, I just won't talk about it. I won't follow trends and talk about things just because it's going to get audience or it's going to get eyes or it's going to go viral. I just really don't believe in doing that. And so I think, look at what your strengths are. We're not on this planet for long. And so to try and force yourself to be a personality type that you're not for somebody else, or to have a trait that somebody else finds annoying, or, you know, if you are always being told that you're loud, then don't try and dim yourself or be, you know, quieter, because that's who you are. Yes, there's certain situations that you might not be able to show up entirely as that person. You know, if you're working as a librarian, then I don't suggest that you embrace that side of yourself in working hours. But, you know, I have a Pilates instructor she used to be a Disney princess at theme parks. She's really loud, really buzzy. She bursts into song every class. Now, people go to that class and they don't come back. They don't like that vibe. And then others like me are drawn to that. It's what that they enjoy. You know, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. In fact, I read a quote once that said, I'd rather be somebody's shot of whiskey than everybody's cup of tea. And how true is that? You're not for everyone, and neither should you be. But there's a difference between trying to fit your personality into something that it's not, and actually just refining some of those characteristics for you and your growth. You know, I am, for instance, trying to be more patient because I'm not a massively patient person. The dog has helped me to really hone that skill, but it's still not quite there yet. And I know sometimes with my husband's ADD, he needs a lot more patience. He needs a lot more understanding. Equally, he is trying to be a better listener and to be more attentive and to show me attention when I'm talking to him, because naturally his personality trait is to be, you know, here, there and everywhere with his thinking. Neither of us are doing those things to change who we are, but we are trying to be better partners within the confines of our own personality and traits. And I think that is the importance and the difference. So have a think about maybe where you are trying to force something or change something, or where in your life you are being made to do that, where actually maybe you shouldn't. If you've got a job that forces you to be a certain person, then if it doesn't feel authentic, maybe you shouldn't be in that job. If you're feeling constantly constricted and dimmed down by your partner or someone in your friendship group, or, if, for instance, you are running a business and you're not showing up authentically with your employees because you're trying to be the super professional version of you, I guarantee you'll get more out of those people if you let that mask down, slip a bit and actually show them who you really are. There is nothing more powerful in this life than being you and being that superhuman, authentic version of yourself, because possibilities come from embracing who you are. I'm not going to be trying to force my dog into being this perfect chilled dog. And, I'm going to try my hardest not to get jealous when other people and friends, their dogs are off lead. We are working with what we've got, and he's amazing just as he is. And I think that is what I want you to take away from this episode. You are you, and you are unique. And as crap and crass as that sounds, and you've probably heard it 10,000 times, there are people in this world that will be drawn to you for you. And they miss out on that opportunity if you're constantly trying to change who you are to fit in, conform, or because you don't like certain personality traits. You're never going to be a perfect person. I'm pretty sure your partner, your friends, your boss all have personality traits that maybe, you not rather that they didn't have, but, aren't their best qualities, but you accept them for who they are. And that's what we have to try and do for ourselves. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that something resonated. Please go and follow the show. Please share it with people in your network. Please tag us on social media when you listen. It helps more than you will ever know. And I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Have a great week. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure you are following the podcast, and don't forget to share episodes with a friend who may need it.